All right, welcome into the Keep Prowling podcast. I'm your host, DJ Bill, and we're back once again to talk about these Carolina Panthers on all major podcasting platforms as usual. But it's rough right now. Let's just jump right into it. It's rough right now. The Panthers were shut out against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 26-0, in another what felt like embarrassing display on the field. But really, it wasn't even the embarrassing display on the field that has everybody talking, right? It was instead an embarrassing display up in the suite, up in the booth, okay, by David Tepper, the Panthers owner. And it's interesting because right now, that might be the best way to describe the Carolina Panthers right now, right? Is embarrassing, for lack of a better term. There is no better term to it. I mean, you're embarrassing on the field. What are you, 2-14 at this point? Tickets are 45 cents, and then on top of that, you have your owner not acting as an owner should. Now I get it, right? I understand, and I try to see the positives and everything, and I understand that we're all human. We all have emotions. You say the wrong thing, act up, you're going to get smacked up. You know what? I understand. I get it, okay? I get it. But to throw the drink on a fan is just embarrassing for a guy who's supposed to be at the caliber that David Tepper is on. And I'm sure he's heard it all week long. He's had to issue apologies and whatnot, and I get it. But it's simply just embarrassing, for lack of no better term than that, okay? Because, doesn't this kind of just put the icing on the cake of this entire season? Like, let's just be honest, right? This season, I'm gonna be real with y'all. I came in with expectations. I was excited. I was ready. I was like, you know what, man? This gonna be a pretty decent season, like 500 or so. Like, it's gonna be okay. It's not, I don't know if it's going. They're not gonna light the world on fire, but I think they have potential at a playoff berth. I think they got potential at showing people a little bit of some offensive prowess. We know the defense is gonna be good, and it just hasn't been. It just hasn't been that, and it seems like this last action from a Carolina Panthers official, at least, seems to be the nail in the coffin, seems to be the icing on the cake. And why do I say that? Because this season has been just, embarrassing, right? It has been deflating. It has been frustrating. No pun intended, but the cup has ran empty here, okay? Like, this is glass half empty has been this season, it's felt like. Like, we've tried to be positive. We tried to have a positive spin on everything, but, man, it's just been simply embarrassing, simply that. And the Panthers are sitting with the number one overall pick right now that they don't even get, with an owner who just got fined $300K, with tickets that you can pick up a couple quarters on the couch and get, and just a display on the field that right now nobody wants to watch. Now I get it. Look, here's the thing. At some point in time, we're going to look back on this season and be like, yeah, that was rough, right? That was rough. I don't even want to go back there. I don't want to think about it. I want to forget about it. We going to feel that way. We're going to look back and we're going to say, hey, this season was actually pretty decent, right? Not decent. This season was not what we expected. This season was not what we anticipated. This season was, we're going to probably look back and be like, oh, that's so far long ago, when things finally do turn around. But right now, the current state of the Panthers is embarrassing. The current state of the Panthers is frustrating. And especially for fans out there as well, the current state of the Panthers is just, when will it end? When will it end? But I think at the same time, man, I think the biggest thing about the Carolina Panthers right now is, at some point it's got to turn around, right? This is rock bottom, right? You 2 more losses away from it being rock bottom, but I think this is rock bottom, right? This is that frustrating point. This is that point of no return where, hey, we're going into week 18 of the season. Once again, you're still playing spoiler against Tampa Bay this week because they're in a win and they're in scenario. So you got that at least. You got at least the ability to play spoiler for Tampa Bay. But I mean, I think it can only go up from here, right? To spin it back into a positive frame, because that's what I do, right? It can only go up from here. It can't really get worse, right? It can't really get worse. This off season is going to be big. David Tepper, as an owner, has a lot of work to do to earn favor back with the fans, to clean up the embarrassment of a season that this was. And they always say winning is the best deodorant, right? And if this team can get back on a winning path, people won't even think about this season as much as they think about it right now, right? It'll be, that was a bad season, but that was needed for the upcoming season. So we'll see. I think we all hoping for a happy new year, at least in the football year coming up next season. So we'll see how it goes. But interestingly enough, let's jump into this NFC South outlook, because it's interesting to see, right? It's interesting to see Tampa Bay, even with the loss last week to a division opponent, they're still in win and get in territory, right? So the little bit of the lead that they built up early on in the season, they get in with a win. So I mean, they can get in two ways. Tampa Bay has to win, or they have to tie, and a New Orleans loss or tie. Which the second scenario, I mean, I would rather go with the first scenario. Tampa Bay playing against the Panthers get a chance to play spoiler, but with the way the Panthers have looked, at least consistently this season, that's Tampa Bay's best bet is to just come out and outwork the Carolina Panthers this week. Right now, I know, the one thing about it is I don't think the Panthers are a giving up team per se, but at the same time, I think Tampa Bay, having so much to play for, getting a chance to just, because you can't dance till you in the dance, right? You can't dance unless you was invited to the party. So Tampa Bay got to find their way into the party, whereas the Carolina Panthers are looking to say, we might not win the division, but y'all not going to win the division because y'all, Tampa Bay's not going to win the division because Tampa Bay beat Carolina. That's how Carolina's feeling right now. But then you look at the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons need two things to happen. Atlanta's got to win against New Orleans, and then Tampa Bay's got to lose to Carolina. So it's kind of interesting, especially how the schedule was mapped out too, because you get a lot of division-defining games, division-determining games, win and you're in scenarios. And the NFL has done a good job as of late of making Week 18, Week 17, and, these last couple weeks mean so much to so many teams. So it's still exciting going down the stretch. I mean, the Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills, they play this week, and that's for the division title. So it's like, there's so many games where it's like, oh man, this gonna be a lot of fun. So Atlanta, they gotta win, and they need a Tampa Bay loss to Carolina for them to get in. Now let's look at New Orleans. Now New Orleans, oddly enough, New Orleans needs the most help, probably because they're playing Atlanta, right? So New Orleans needs a New Orleans win and a Tampa Bay loss. So Tampa Bay's got to lose to Carolina, and New Orleans has to. So basically, for New Orleans or Atlanta to win the division, their best bet is going to be win and hope for Tampa Bay to lose, right? Because they play each other. And then, so I mean, Carolina kind of in a certain way, like they determine who wins the division, even though they're not in the race. They still determine who wins the division, so that's kind of fun. But very interesting. I mean, there's a couple of other scenarios where the NFC South teams can still clinch playoff berths, even by not winning the division. But I would be really, truly surprised if that happens, because they need a lot of help to do so. But let's jump into the picks real quick, and then we're gonna get out your way for the week, because interestingly enough, right, this is a week where everybody's playing for something, right? Everybody's playing for there's teams out here playing spoiler like the Carolina Panthers, but there are also teams that are playing for the division. There's teams that are playing for playoff berths. There's teams that's playing to stay in the playoff race. For the most part, a lot of teams are playing for something. Now, with Baltimore and with San Francisco, they got the number one seeds in their respective conferences, so they're good. They're honestly, they're not playing for much, but they're playing strategically, right? They're playing to figure out, do we want to keep our guys in a rhythm a little bit when make this a semi preseason game, or are we going to say, hey, we're going to give y'all a couple weeks off, rest up, it's a long season, rest up and let's see how it goes. So that's the decision that those two teams have to make. But pretty much everybody else is playing for seeding, is playing for the division. So it's gonna be a whole lot of fun, because next week when we come back and I'm gonna have someone else on with me once again. Next week we're gonna give out our Carolina Panthers MVPs, right? We might give some end of season end of season awards for the Carolina Panthers, and be sure to put your thinking caps on. Let me know what you guys think when it comes down to the end of season awards for the Carolina Panthers. I don't know why I want to say rewards, but end of season awards for the Carolina Panthers. But let's pick these games, and then I'm gonna just let y'all go with a short show today. But the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. This is interesting because this time last year, Baltimore was playing to make sure that Pittsburgh didn't have another winning season. I think it's been, 15 straight. And this year is kind of just like you're just playing just to win that game, to say, get a little bit of bragging rights. Of course, Pittsburgh's still playing for a playoff spot. I think Baltimore wins this game, even with, a lot of their starters probably not playing in this game or not playing a lot in this game. I think Baltimore wins this game simply because I think they're the better team. They're the deeper team. I think they win this game. Houston at Indianapolis. This is interesting because even with the Jaguars beating the Panthers last week, this playoff race is still up for grabs. The AFC South, that playoff race is still up for grabs. Like, anybody can win it. Houston is, oddly enough, as much as I feel like they probably played better than any of the teams in this division, Houston is right, they're on the outside looking in almost right now. They need the most help to get in. So between, I think Indy and Jacksonville are kind of winning their in type situations, but Houston is at the bottom of the barrel, but they're all tied right now too. So this is a big game. I think my thought process is I think C.J. Stroud will be back, and I think Houston will win this game. I think out of those three teams, just for some fun and some discussion, I think out of those three teams, who wins that division, I think Houston finds a way to win it. Because I think with Jacksonville, they're playing Tennessee, which is, it's still going to be tough. I think Jacksonville is almost kind of like the lock to get in, but I think it'll be Houston. I think Houston will find their way in somehow, some way. They're gonna win this game. Jacksonville gonna lose. That's how it's gonna go. So speaking of, let's pick that one real quick while we're at it. Jacksonville at Tennessee. I think Tennessee upsets Jacksonville, right? Jacksonville, oddly enough, it seems like with C.J. Beathard, they tend to find ways to win somehow. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it seems like they've been more inconsistent with Trevor Lawrence than they've been with C.J. Beathard. So that's been weird. I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is gonna play this week, but that also is a huge indication on what happens with that, but we'll definitely see. So next up we got, with Tampa Bay, Carolina, I didn't really pick this game, but I think Tampa Bay is going to win. I think Tampa Bay is this close to a playoff berth, and I don't think they're going to let Carolina step in their way. Like, maybe in seasons past, but I think it's going to be a good game. Like, I think this. Let me put it to you this way. I think Tampa Bay wins, but I think Carolina pushes them to the limit. Like, Carolina puts as much doubt in their minds as they can. I think Carolina's going to come out and compete. I think Carolina's going to come out and show, like, we're not done yet. It wasn't the season we wanted to have, but we're not done yet. So I think Carolina's going to put out a good game, especially, we've seen that against the NFC South teams, that's usually when they play their best. And I think Tampa Bay's going to win the game. That's just how I'm feeling. Cleveland at Cincinnati, another AFC North matchup. Cleveland's in. Cincinnati is still trying to fight their way in, but I think Cleveland wins this game. I think Cincinnati's been on this weird run, right? This weird, wild run of like just by hook or by crook we're gonna win games. By hook, just because we're more talented, we're gonna win games. But I think Cleveland's defense is still gonna show up and be really good, and I think they're gonna make Jake Browning look like a backup quarterback at least for 1 week to kind of just solidify their momentum when it comes to the playoff run that they hope to have. The Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. Detroit got their first. What was the stat? They got their first division title in like 30. I think it was 30 years, which is wild. Like, shout out to them. I've been doubting them all year long, and they've proven me wrong time and time again. I think they'll beat Minnesota. I think Minnesota is, just slowly dying at this point for this season. Right, their chances are slowly dying. I think just the injuries and everything too just haven't been kind to Minnesota this year, and I think Detroit's just the better team. The New York Jets at the New England Patriots. I think the Jets win this game. I think the Patriots are that bad. I think the Patriots are that team where it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. And, it's interesting because the thought process is this might be Bill Belichick's last home game, and it would be, honestly, it kind of be surprising if he lost his last home game. So that might pick Bill Belichick just because of that, right? The potential of it being his last home game, him going out on a loss seems weird. So maybe I will go New England, but I will say with the rumors that New England may be parting ways with Bill Belichick, they might mutually step away from each other. It's kind of interesting because with them having such a high pick this offseason, you would think maybe they'd want to give him another chance at a pretty decent quarterback and see how it goes. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So I'm going to go New England on that. I'm going to change my mind. New England. Atlanta at New Orleans. So this is, once again, goes back into the division. I think this game, it's not at 425. I think they did that purposefully because they want everybody to compete, right? They want this entire division to compete. They don't want it to just be like, well, Tampa Bay beat Carolina, so there's no need for Atlanta and New Orleans to necessarily play as hard as they might want to, right? So I think they did that on purpose to so you can kind of scoreboard watch a little bit too, and for the fans of each of these respective teams, it'll be kind of fun to kind of go back and forth on who's winning this game, who's winning that game, what's going on over there type situation. But I think in terms of this game, I think New Orleans wins the game. Atlanta's been, I think, a little bit surprising, and I think with Taylor Heineke, I think they're better than they are with Desmond Ridder, which maybe makes me tend to believe they might win this game. But I don't know. I'm going to go New Orleans. I think New Orleans, once again, I said it all year long, New Orleans is the more talented of the two teams, I feel like, but they just can't really get out of their own way, I guess. But going to the 425 game, Seattle at Arizona. I think Seattle wins this game. I think they try to keep their playoff hopes alive. Seattle's been, if you want to talk about a confusing team in the league this season, Seattle's been simply just that. Like, they've been one of the most confusing teams I've seen. Arizona, they've dealt with injuries all season long, it's felt like, and they just haven't been able to come back from it. Chicago at Green Bay, this will be fun, especially for charity. I feel like Chicago is finding their stride. And I said that before. They did it last year too. They kind of found their stride late, and it made this season feel like it was going to be like, oh yeah, this going to be a pretty good season, right? But it hasn't been as good as they wanted it to be. I think Green Bay is playing more for a playoff spot than Chicago is, but with Chicago, I just think they're on kind of a little bit of a roll. So I'm gonna roll with the momentum of Chicago, and Chicago just, for the life of them, can't beat Green Bay. So it's going to be hard to beat them in Lambeau, but I think maybe this is a sign of things to come for Chicago and kind of flipping that division, kind of on its head a little bit, at least from what we've seen for over the past, 10, 15 years. But Kansas City and probably longer than that because Brett Favre was running it before then, but Kansas City at the LA Chargers. I think Kansas City wins this game. I don't think Kansas City is playing for much of anything at this point. They're in the playoffs, but they're playing for seeding purposes. But I just think, LA, they're another one of those teams that just had injuries all year long. It's been a rough one for them. So I think Kansas City gets the win. Denver, with the no Russell Wilson experiment anymore, going up against the Raiders. I think the Raiders win this game. I think Pierce continues to stamp why he deserves to be the head coach of the Vegas Raiders. And I think Denver is, I just don't think Denver is gonna show much without Russell Wilson, right? I know Russell Wilson hasn't necessarily always been the Russell Wilson of old for Denver, but I just don't see it happening. But I'm going Vegas in that one. Philly at the New York Giants. Once again, another one of those games where I think it's funny when you look at the schedule. A bunch of division games, a bunch of if you especially take yourself back to when expectations were so high for a lot of these teams. Philly at the New York Giants is one of those where you're like, that might be a division competing type game, or like somebody knocks somebody else out of the playoffs type situation, but not as much anymore. So I think Philly gets the win. Philly had a tough one against New York a couple weeks ago, but I think they'll go ahead and lock that one down. The LA Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. I think the Rams keep their momentum going because the Niners beat them earlier in the season, if I'm not mistaken, and I feel like the Rams are kind of finding their little momentum. They're becoming that team. Maybe they've already became it, but they're becoming that team that you don't really want to see in the playoffs. So I think they kind of continue some momentum. Plus, San Francisco ain't got as much to play for because they've already locked in everything they need to lock in. I mean, literally, you can't lock in anything else. Dallas at Washington. I'm going to go Dallas on this one. I think Dallas gets the win. I think Dallas shows that, they are the superior team in this one against Washington. So Buffalo, Monday Night Football, not Monday Night, Sunday Night Football. There's no Monday Night Football this week, but Sunday Night Football for the AFC East crown. So Buffalo at Miami. This one's interesting to me because how things have changed, right? Buffalo had a high start to the season, and then they slowed down a lot. Like they almost came to a halt where it was just like, what is going on with Buffalo? And Miami kind of have been consistent throughout until they play like teams over 500. Then they just have been inconsistent and oddly inconsistent. But I feel like Miami's gonna win this game and gonna win this division. I think because of course you had last year Buffalo winning this division and then getting bounced out of the playoffs by Miami. I think you could see maybe a flip here where Miami wins the division and then they have to play Buffalo potentially in the first round or so, and then they kind of revenge type aspect of things. But I think this is one of those games where Buffalo has a chance to slow down the fastest team in the league, and that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be a tough ask. That's a tough ask for anybody. But I think this is interesting, and I like that it's Sunday night. Obviously that's why all these games were TBD. You don't know what's gonna happen. That's the fun part about the NFL. But I think Buffalo. I almost feel like Miami's defense is too good for Buffalo to beat them in this game, right? Like, at Miami, I think Miami wins this game. They win the division, and we'll see what they do in the playoffs. Same thing for the Buffalo Bills as well. So it should definitely be a whole lot of fun this week to see what happens because there's a lot of games with a lot on the line. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's been an embarrassing week for the Panthers, but the Panthers will get back up, right? They will get back up because they have to. Okay, they got me attacking my microphone because of the embarrassment of this week. But I definitely hope you guys enjoyed the show. Remember that the Keep Prowling podcast is on all major podcasting platforms, so be sure to check the show out where, take us with you if you have to as well. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Keep Prowling podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and if you liked it, be sure to give me a thumbs up.